Hello everyone, I'm Rikard.
And I'm Henrik.
And we're very proud to be here in Łódź at the TestingCup and to give a keynote to you. And we have put together something new for us, and it's the top 10 testing mistakes that shaped us.
Yes. And over the years, we worked together for almost 20 years, I think. And
it feels like 120.
Yeah, it feels like that. But, we also had, we also were members of a test team that were the best and most humble test team in Northern Europe. And I'm not sure if Poland counts to Northern Europe, but if it is counted, then we were the best and most humble test team in Northern Europe, including Poland and the rest of the world.
And Australia.
And Japan.
And some minor countries in South America as well.
Exactly.
So, anyway, we're here to share all the mistakes that we've done during our career.
Not all of them.
Okay.
We have done more than 10.
Yeah, okay, so the top 10 mistakes that shaped us. Because we think it's really important to learn from the mistakes you do and try to improve as a tester or a test lead or a test manager. So that's, we hope to share some of our insights, and hopefully you recognize some of these yourself. Rikard, do you want to start?
Sure. Let me tell you the story of the reckless bug hunters. And this was at a time when we worked at a product company. We produced a data visualization tool that was very expensive, and we tested it very well. But sometimes at the field they also built some special add-on applications for a special company. So they sold like an extra visualization just for them. And we weren't involved in testing that. And we wanted to be involved, yes, because we were proud of the work we were doing and felt like if we can test it, the quality will be even better, and we will build a better company, and we can show how good we are. So finally, we were invited to test one of these add-on tools they have built over in the States. So it was on a Friday morning. The software arrived, and we installed it, and we were 4 of us, and we were really loaded up. Now we're going to find all the bugs here. And we did find probably all the bugs that were in that piece of software. It was a bit over 30 bugs.
That we found all over the place, different kinds, with big data, small data, crashes, all of it. You name it, we had it. And we produced the report, and over just one day, we had like, here are all the bugs, and we sent it over to the States, and we went for the week, and was really proud and happy that we said we can do it, and we did it. And the weekend went, and it became Monday, and we didn't hear from the States, and Tuesday and Wednesday, and we didn't have any direct contact with them. And we started to, what's going on? Why aren't they like applauding and saying, oh, wow, what a fantastic testing job you did? There was nothing. But then we were informed that they hadn't even read what we had written. They just received this report with all this long list of bugs, and they just, what's this? And they have moved on and installed it at the company, and they were happy with it. So we realized that we really had messed up.
Yeah,
really
messed up. And I think it was a clear case of gluttony that we were, affected by.
Yes, I confess. We were just thinking about ourselves and how we can find bugs and wanting to find as many bugs as possible. And that was not what we were supposed to do in this case, because we had failed to understand what our mission was in this case. Because what they wanted was like a sanity check of this new thing, not a complete rip-off of everything. They wanted to see if there were maybe a couple of really big bugs that should be fixed. And those bugs were in our list, but they were like disappearing in the long list. So we did the totally wrong kind of testing because we hadn't checked with them what kind of information they wanted from us. And this was a bad mistake at the time, because the respect we have built up was like destroyed, and it took time before we could do this again. But now I'm very grateful, because we learn that we really need to understand what are we doing here, what kind of information do they want, who do I need to talk to understand what kind of testing they want to have done.
And to find out the expectations from the stakeholders is really important, because as you said, we might have a different view of what we should aim at.
Of course.
Focus on.
And also to realize that testing isn't about showing off how good you are at finding bugs. It can be different things in different situations.
Yeah.
So Henrik, do you have something you want to share?
Yes, I want to share being on top of the pyramid. So this is around the same time on the same company, and excuse me. So much better. During the same time, and since we worked with a data analysis and visualization tool, we also had a bug system that we have developed ourselves. We came up with the idea to use the bug system and the data in it as test data for our analysis tool. And that was a good thing we did, because the tool was really complex, but we understood the test data because it was our bugs. So and the bugs were also a rather complex set of data. So it had a good opportunity to find problems in the product. We also started to experiment, not that kind of experiment, but experiment with what could we do more about the bug system, and could we find out more statistics from the from the bug system. So we created a lot of tools, looking at different products, and we built this into our application that we actually tested. But we also, because it was easy, we also created a web page with statistics of the bug reporters. So this was extracted every time you loaded the web page, and you got in the number of bugs reported by on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly, yearly, and in total. And at first this was just for fun, and sometimes you had a sneak preview on this list, and it was good. But after a while it became more of an addiction, to how do I look on the statistics page. And I started 6 months after Rikard, and since we're both probably the best and most humble testers, so it was hard to keep up with Rikard's tempo. But I was fortunate, because Rikard started as a project manager for a while, and his bug, he didn't report as many bugs. So I was, getting ahead and keeping up with Rikard's tempo. And suddenly one day, I realized that I could be on top of the pyramid. So I reported a lot of bugs, and behold, you see my name? I was on top of every list here. Champagne. That was a celebration. Yeah. I was really proud and had a print screen of this, and brought it home. I was thinking of printing a T-shirt with this. So that was really cool. However, when I started to think about this was really useless, because it didn't say anything about me bringing any value to the team, to the product, or to the company, because this was just counting bugs, and that had no value to it. And one of the main reasons behind this, my explosion in the bug reporting area, was that I worked with a really sloppy developer, he was really fast, but he introduced a lot of problems. So it was an easy match for me to keep up the race there, I think.
So the judge have to say that you did some very narcissistic behavior.
Guilty. I was really guilty. And the best thing is that I learned a lot from this. Because nowadays, I hate to see the number of bugs. Every time we work in projects nowadays, when people say that, yeah, we found 40 serious bugs here, and I don't forget about the 40. That's not interesting. Could you give me the most critical bugs and show me which laws are affected by this? Which laws are we about to break? that might be more interesting to know than the sheer number. So that's really important. So every time we try to reduce lists and instead be telling more compelling stories about problems instead of just producing lists, because the sheer numbers doesn't say anything. It just says that it's a number. So the short lesson here that we learned is don't count bugs. Easy peasy.
It's not that easy because sometimes people request to have the number of bugs.
Yeah.
Yep. But there's a solution. You can put them in extremely small font size.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4.
Yeah. It's unreadable.
My turn?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the Verify That story. And it was the same company where the test group was awarded with a big test case management system. And before that we documented in notes and in Excel sheets and whatever we found suitable at the moment. But then we were having this big test case management system. It was QA Director. Maybe some of you have worked with it. It was horrible, really horrible. But it also had some benefits of organizing stuff. And we worked in a pretty freestyle, exploratory testing style. So we had a lot of test IDs. We don't have test steps, but we had to put them in a system. So it was like a test case would be like, check this or something. And then we started writing that, verify that the report can handle negative numbers, verify that no unforeseen things happen, and still quite open-ended questions. But we had this verify that all the time, and after a while people were starting to make these sentences more pinpointed,
yeah.
So they were more direct, they were more easy to evaluate, because in a system you had to put a pass or fail afterwards. And as time went, both we and others, we were more interested in getting to put the pass or fail, just so we could move on to the next thing. And we could become more obsessed with that than the actual exploration of the product. So it became more of a mechanistic, confirmatory testing, where you do that thing and you confirm that, and then you do pass or fail, and you don't really care if it's a pass or fail, just that you can move on to the next thing. So this was a mistake, I say.
Yeah. And you were, affected by the binary disease.
Yes.
Yes.
We had the binary disease. We thought that everything was ones or zeros or black or white, and that it was a good thing to put pass or fail. Just because the tool had that method,
yeah.
We were thinking in the same ways as the tools and the machines are doing.
Yeah.
And this can be seen all over Northern Europe and Poland and Australia and other countries as well.
Yeah.
That you think that the software is good or bad, or it's a 1 or 0, it's a pass or fail, but that's not the way it is. It's much more rich than that. And the lesson we learned from this is that it shouldn't be as easy as pass or fail when you test software. If you are testing something and you find that it's easy, then you're doing something wrong. So whenever I do something and it's too easy or too boring, then I think I'm doing something wrong now.
Yeah.
If I find too many bugs, maybe I'm not understanding the software.
No.
If I have no bugs, I need to change the method. And testing isn't supposed to be easy.
No, and also we when we got this system, we tried to fool the management because they brought us this system. So we fooled them by adding the verify that and had an open question, and the test ID was still there. But we didn't explain this to the colleagues that followed, so they thought they were very open-ended. So that system degraded, I think.
Yeah. And of course it's fine to use tools, but you must be aware that it will affect how you think and how you test. Your turn.
Okay, so let me talk a bit about a mistake that I did, which we call the new build bonanza. And this was later on in that company. We worked with a new 1.0 version of the product. And we were a test team of 10 testers, and I was the test lead. Rikard was one of the testers. Really good team, very competent team, of testers. And after 4 months or so, we were awaiting the first build of this, a workable product. So during the first 4 months of this project, the project was over a year, I think, in total. We had created a lot of, test IDs, test data. We prepared a lot of things, put up the test environments, and also we had also built up a lot of expectation. We were pumped up with adrenaline and expectation of this new build. So the day came and the build was installed, and all hell broke loose. It was like Rikard was, sharing the first crash bug that we found, and it was like a yeah in the lab, in the test lab that we were in. And we saw, some developers were out in the hallways and just sneaking in, and they heard the noises and the cheering, and and we were sarcastic. Look at this, bad fuckers.
I never said something like that, but other people
never use that. But other people use that word. But also, I started to notice that some people in the test team were really stressed about this, because we had some people that were really fast, quick testers, penetrated things really fast, and other people were more analytical. They had to think more, and they didn't work so quick. So that night I couldn't really, sleep, because I was thinking of that this was really a bad situation we ended up in. A couple of people were screaming and cheering, and other people were like always second on the ball, so to speak. So
Yeah, it was too much narrow-mindedness.
Yes, yeah. Indeed, it was. And me as a test lead, this wasn't a mistake by the testers. It was me as a test lead who didn't use the full competence of the test team. I could have planned this more. I could have said that a couple of people could focus on the smoke pass, just to see just the low-hanging fruit. And I could ask a couple of other people to focus on data export or data import or some other area where we could go more deeper. Because now we had a situation where 10 people were just doing the shallow testing and found the same bugs, all of them. So that was for me it was a really big mistake, but which I thought about a lot and learned a lot from. So from this on, I try to make use of the diversity in the team. If I have people that need more time in order for them to test, then I should use that and plan for those to get those 2-3 days before they enter the deep areas. And those people might find the really serious bugs that we might miss if we just focus on the same things. And also, if people have other special skills, you can also try to plan so that they can use those skills in order for us to get as much of the team as possible, I think.
Good lesson.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next one is the rebels with an unspoken cause. So to the left is me, and then we have Daniel, who clearly don't want to be on the picture. And then it's Henrik and Johan, and we were all working in this marvelous test team.
Yeah.
Probably the best and most humble test team in Northern Europe and Australia, and the rest of the world as well.
Yeah.
And we were really good because we had the testing energy. We wanted to test, and we really tried out different methods. So I think we tried all methods that existed at that time, and even other methods as well. Even methods that haven't been invented yet, we tried them. And we did find really good stuff and had really good value to the team. And we helped. When we came, it was rather shaky product and not polished, but it was really expensive. But then after a while, it was really expensive and really good. But what happened after a while was that there was some strange decision happening. It could be like the CEO could have a decision about testing. Now you need to do it like this all the time, and now this is the thing we're going to go. And it was like a strange decision. They go, wait, what's this? What kind of strange thing is this? And strange things happen now and then.
Yeah.
And after we left the company, it felt like even stranger things happened, and that all tests should be automated and stuff like that, and it maybe deteriorated. We really don't know because we weren't there at the time, but some strange decisions were made. And we realized that the reason for this was that we never explained to anyone why the testing we did was good one, and what our success factors were. We were just doing the testing and thought that what we discovered, that was the value, and everyone will realize how good this is. But we never said to them that, to the managers, that, well, the freedom we have to experiment is the key factor, that we find new methods and that we can drop some method that doesn't work. We never told anyone that.
No.
We were like rebellious, doing good work, but not really explaining how and why we did it.
Yeah. So we were really naive at this point because, you know, we thought that, you know, people knew that we were good, that we did good work.
Yeah, and maybe they knew that, but they didn't know how we did it, and they didn't know what we needed, what kind of environment we needed in order to do the good work. So the lesson that we learned from this is that we really need to explain testing to our managers and their managers and the CEO and other people, so they understand what we are doing and how we are doing it and why we are doing it and what we need in order to do it well. So this is something I do. I did it last week. I had our main stakeholders came from Stockholm for 2 hours, and I sat with them and showed them what testing I did and why I did it, and explained to them that this is possible because you don't ask every day how many test cases have you run or how many bugs have you found. Rather, you trust us with information. So to be open and clear about what we do, and they're really happy. And I think they can remain happy if they are more aware of what we are doing.
Yeah, and also one other thing we learned from this was that we tried a new thing when we ended up at the company we work now, was that we anchored our philosophy of testing in a management group. So we started there because earlier on we had started as you know, anchoring a test strategy and a policy or whatever we want to call it in the test group. But now we started at a management group and got it anchored in and grounded there first, and then we tried to implement it in the rest of the company, and that was really a cool thing.
And even the CEO, he can explain testing better than we can do to other managers because he has the same language, and that makes the decisions become good ones. So we are halfway now, and we are getting tired of confessing all these mistakes. So
now it's your turn. We would like, this is an exercise that takes 2 minutes, and we would like you to first stand up and just shake a bit. Stand up.
Stand up, stand up.
Shake a bit. It's late afternoon, and we want now to turn to your neighbor and confess on one mistake you've done during your career and what you learn on it. And you got 1 minute, and then we change. Rikard, can you keep the time?
Yeah, 1 minute to tell about your mistakes.
Find a friend.
That was 1 minute. Now it's time to let the other person confess. Time starts now. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you.
Please have a seat again.
Yeah, we have more things to confess.
Doesn't it feel good to be honest and among your peers?
And if you want to share more mistakes later on today, there is no way we can stop you.
But as Rikard mentioned, we have more mistakes to share with you. And this we're going to talk about now is the test report maniac. And it's me on the picture, as you see. And I'm holding the test report. And this was actually when we worked with the 1.0 product I talked about earlier. In the end of that project, I was supposed to deliver a quality status report for that product. You know, standard, I think, at that time. And I put a lot of effort into this. And I produced a 162-page status report. Amazing. With frames and everything in the Word document. It was amazing. And packed with genius, genius things like good conclusions and
Nobel Prize candidate.
Yeah, and it was they're not going to have the Nobel Prize in literature this year, but I was perhaps one of the candidates. I'm not sure. Anyway, when I sent out this test report to the stakeholders in the project, I was really proud. At first I printed this, and it was a really large, bit of paper and report. And when I slammed it into the table, it had a good thud, good sound, powerful.
Proud.
Yeah, I did it several times. But when I sent it out to the stakeholders in preparation for the release meeting, and I said that here is a quality state report. If you have any questions, I'm here. I'm up all night, so just keep in touch. But I didn't hear anything. And then just an hour before the release meeting, I got questions, obvious questions, like, but it's in the report, I said. And then yes, I knew, but I just wanted to double check. And also, so after the release meeting, I was really upset because clearly they wanted me to do the quality status report, and they hadn't read it. This genius report. It was so good.
Maybe too good.
Too good, perhaps. But what I realized was that when I thought about this, I realized that there was too much information in this. I had produced the information I could produce. But that's not the same thing as giving information that the stakeholders want. You see the difference? So,
well, we have a clear case of miscommunication.
Yeah, it was a clear case of that. And what we have learned from this over the years is that when you investigate upon the testing missions you have, and when you identify your stakeholders, it's also important to interview them on the expectations on how we should report things and what they want to know, which risks are they concerned about, what information do they need in order to make informed decisions. So that's important for us to, in order to understand how we could report things to different stakeholders. One good thing we said once is that your testing is never better than the communication of the results. And that's one message we have here today, is that also in an earlier mistake we talked about that they didn't realize how good testing we were doing because we didn't present results in a good way. So that's really important. So nowadays we try to interview the stakeholders, and we also try to say that for some people it might be okay to have a daily status update. For others they need a report every month or something, or some people might need an email. But it shouldn't be one report that you use to everyone, because that's not interesting.
And that's something that you check early on. How do you want us to report? That's not something you ask in the end of the project.
No.
No. And sometimes people at the company ask me, do you have a good test report template? And then I say, no. You have to find out what you need to report in your situation.
Yeah.
Okay, my turn?
Yes.
It's the stuck in proxy. This is more recent. It's maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we worked in a new industry. And me and Henrik were assigned with creating a new test process to be followed by different actors in the big ecosystem. And we had a contact person we had a very close collaboration with. And as we had learned so much over our previous mistakes, we were very clear with what are the different testing missions involved in here, and what are the quality goals for different people, and what about this aspect and this aspect. And he answered them and got everything. And we worked diligently on going forward, and we're getting good stuff. And when we had some drafts or some pieces, our contact would take them to Stockholm to show the true stakeholders to get their approval and see if they want to add something. And he came back and said, oh, wow, your work is magnificent. They love it. Just keep up the good work.
You're geniuses.
Yeah, we're geniuses. And you really know testing. And we're like, yeah, nice. And we continued and finalized this work, and it became like a 0.96 version. It was not a 1.0 yet, because it had to be reviewed and approved by some more people. But we produced it where we were happy with this, and our contact was really happy. And he was just to do some more anchoring, and then it would be published. But it never was published at all. It stayed as a 0.96 that some people could read, but it was not established and really used. So we had done some mistake here. Yeah.
And the mistake we did here was that we were charmed by this sweet talking from this stakeholder, really.
Yes. So what happened in reality was that when he talked to other stakeholders, he couldn't really explain what was in there, because he didn't really know about it.
He didn't read it.
He didn't want to admit that to us, so then he just said that we were super good and that we should keep up the good work. So it was never really anchored among the true stakeholders. We were talking to the one guy in the middle, but we were never talking to the other guys, the people who were really in charge and the ones who would make the decisions and were the true stakeholders. And maybe what we had was good and could have worked well for them if we would have been in the meetings and explained to them. But we weren't, because we were trusting the proxy. And what we have learned from this now is that we really need to reach the true stakeholders. It's not enough with someone saying that, yeah, I have talked to this and they say it's fine, because we have no idea what they talked about. And we want to be part of those meetings so they can ask questions and we can ask follow-up questions, and we will come up with new ideas and stuff like that. Sometimes you can't reach all the stakeholders, but we do more of an effort nowadays than we did at that time. So, Henrik?
Yes, let me share a thing about a rather recent mistake we did. Was that we were working in a service-oriented architecture environment in Sweden. And it was a large ecosystem of all the regions in Sweden sharing health records with each other. So they had, in order to do this, because they had different systems, in order to do this, they need to have something called a service contract in order to transfer information. So everyone had to follow that. For all the service consumers and the service producers, they had to follow the same service contract, and the specification for those contracts was a textual document, and you see a snippet from it here. This is the description of one field called date period in Swedish, so you don't understand it perhaps, but it was that kind of information in this specification. And this was one element of perhaps a couple of hundreds. And when we got into this, this had been implemented for like perhaps a couple of years, and a lot of smart people in Sweden had, created these contracts and specifications, and they had reviewed them and improved them, and started to implement using these. So for us, it was our challenge was to grasp these, large specifications and try to understand things and so on. And one thing we did was that we used these rules in order to understand how the certain elements should work when we tested it. But the problem was that when we started we realized that both me and Rikard, who had worked with it for a couple of years, and when we started to understand that we had different views of this. So when we started to discuss and we started to try to visually model this by drawing on a paper in order for us to understand, and then we realized that we had different mental models. But we also understood that the representation here was wrong. There were a lot of dates that couldn't really be before others and after others, because it doesn't work like that. So there were a lot of assumptions in this that weren't really true. So there were errors in this. And so we think we were guilty of something here.
Yeah, there was too little critical thinking. We thought that just because it had been approved and in place for several years, it must be good.
Yeah. So what we did from here is that we learned that we cannot accept a specification as it is. We need to be critical against it, and we need to understand it more ourselves. So we need to develop more models. We need to model these models in order for us to understand better. So one thing we came up with was that on the right hand you see the scribbling we did with pen and paper. And it also shows, if you can see those details, but it also shows, I think on top there is my model, and on the bottom there is Rikard's. So we had different visual style of trying to explain our mental models. And also to the left, we started out to try to combine the visual and textual models in order for both ourselves, but for others to understand more. So we realized that we had to have more dimensions, more models in order for us to understand it.
Yes, one model is not enough.
No.
And if you just look at in one way, you will lose stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. My turn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the story about the unhumble tester. I am extremely humble, one of the most humble testers in Northern Europe, but I had a situation this winter where I wasn't that humble. And it was in a project with it was a tight deadline, and it was an important project, and we needed to finish it at a certain date. And in the middle of this project, the development said that now you need to work on this thing. And I knew that the thing they were doing wasn't a good thing to do, because it would mean that the user would break the law. So we had like a project meeting when they said, now we're going to do this, and I said, you shouldn't do that, because it's just a waste of time. They will be breaking the law. And then the manager of all this said that, no, but we have decided to do this because we think it's the right thing. And then I said again, maybe 2 or 3 times, more louder voice over a phone meeting, that but we can't do this. Users will break the law. You're wasting the time over here. And I was really certain of what I was saying, because I knew I was right. But of course the manager said that, no, we will do this. And then they implemented this thing, and it took 2 months. And after 2 months they removed the feature, because it would mean that the users would break the law. But what I did here is that I did a big mistake. Yeah,
it was a lack of empathy. You
yes.
You were not putting yourself into other person's situations.
Yes. I was purely thinking about how can we manage our resources efficiently so we don't waste our effort. I was not thinking about that the manager had made a decision, we want to do this, even though it's questionable, we want to do this. So when I said, in the tone of my voice, it sounded like I said, are you stupid by doing this? I didn't say that, but it might have sounded like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could have been maybe expelled from the project because you can't work with people who are like that. But I could stay on the project, and we did manage to get it out on time and everything. So it went okay after a while. But it was a clear case of me not really understanding the situation and why people are making decisions in the way they do.
Yeah.
So the lesson I learned is that it's of course all right to be right, but I need to do it in the best way. So if I, for instance, would have said outside a big meeting, talk to the manager and said that, are you sure about this thing? Because when I spoke to him, it sounded like this, and had like a conversation. Are you sure? Because we could be spending man weeks on something that we need to throw away and like that, and in a nice way. Maybe they would have changed it.
Yeah.
And we would have not have wasted the time. But as it was now, I was right and I was sure about it, and I wasn't in the wrong way.
Yeah, and we also talk about empathy. We often think of users, that we put ourselves into user situation, but also we have other stakeholders and managers that we also need to be put ourselves in their situation as well. So it's interpersonal subjectivity.
So as a humble tester, some bugs I don't report in the systems because I know the developer will be he will feel bad if I put it in the system. So I just talk to him instead. Like that. So empathy, as humble testers, of course we are empathic all the time, but at least now, after I did this big failure. So, number 10, Henrik.
Yeah, let me tell you about the mother of all test strategies. This was during my first year as a consultant, like 10 years ago. And I had a client in the UK, in the financial services industry. And I worked on a large consulting company in Sweden, so I got this assignment, and they said they were expecting a test strategy from me in like 2 weeks or something. And I realized that since I work on this large company, I might, check with the headquarters and see if they have, some material I can use in this project. So I emailed them and asked, do you have any, test report, test strategy and test plan templates in English? And yes, they had. I got it in return the same day, I think. And glad you asked. Here they are. They are really good. So I started to have a look directly at the test strategy, and it was on 47 pages. So a rather thick document, right, for a test strategy. And when I scribbled through this document, it looks like it had a lot of, test-related information. Interesting. But then I looked at this sentence on the, one of the early pages. It said that this was generic in nature and should apply to any IT project. Interesting. And it also supports both incremental and non-incremental projects. Perfect, because I don't know today if they're going to develop it in incremental or non-incremental. So here we go. It's a really good strategy, because also it's good because it's applicable already for this product and product that I don't know anything about yet. So that's really good. And also, it was really convenient because you could also search and replace for the 5 X's and replace it with the product name, and you were done. So, great, really.
It's the mother of all test strategies.
Yeah. So I was like this close to do this. And then I said, enough is enough. Enough with this bullshit, really. It can't be applicable to my product. I haven't seen the name of the product yet that they're going to implement at this financial services firm. So it can't be applicable. So what I did was to test out for the first time. I tried to test out to create a test strategy from scratch, and I used. If you have read the Lessons Learned in Software Testing, a really good book by Kainer, Bach, and Petticord. And they have an appendix there. It's called How to Evolve a Context-Driven Test Plan. So I started to have a look at that, and that's the heuristic model that helps you to think and look up answers for things and start to create a test strategy and perhaps a plan after a while. So I started to do that, and I was almost guilty of
some laziness there. You almost sent in something that wouldn't have been good at all.
Oh. So I was lazy by asking, is there a template for this? I was looking for a shortcut, really. But I'm so glad today that I didn't use that. And since we then, during our years, we have discussed this a lot about this, that testing is an intellectual process. We need to question our own thinking. We need to find out the answers ourselves. We need to find out what's important in our project and in the product, and that's really important. And for me, it was like the first strategy. I'm not sure if that test strategy was so good now, but the thinking was really good, and it got me into a new direction in my career, where I started to do all the test strategies from scratch, really. So I don't use any templates or the last project's test strategy. I start from scratch, and they usually get really good.
And I do the same, because you showed me what you told me this story, and I realized I have to do this as well. It's enough with recycling old stuff that doesn't really make sense in this situation.
Yeah.
So now we use the heuristic test strategy model by James Bach. I use it for any project I'm involved with, and you do as well.
Yeah.
And we also mean that we actually use it.
Yeah.
We don't mean that we have read the test strategy model and felt like, oh, this is nice. We mean that we look at it and look at the questions and try to answer them ourselves. Because the really good part of it is that it doesn't really tell you how to do. It just asks some questions, and you have to do all the hard work for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we are very humble, probably we are the ones who have been using that model most in the world.
Yeah.
Probably more than the authors even.
Yeah, and including Japan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not going to share our latest finding yet, because this is a learning opportunity. We haven't found out really what we should learn from this, but we call it hairdresser or police.
Yeah,
and
we are certain that we will make a big mistake that we could call hairdresser or police at another talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's another story. So, hope that you have enjoyed our presentation, and thank you